shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Behave yourselves!
Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry Saravia de Movies. So today we're going to talk about something that is consistently occurring in our culture with regards to art, to films, sculpture, plays, everything. They are called trigger warnings, or in the cases of universities, of which I will discuss briefly, content warnings. So, some of you probably know this already if you're a fan of Martin Scorsese's GoodFellas. It is being shown on the AMC network, and obviously a very truncated, edited version, no doubt. And they put a trigger warning at the beginning of the film, and the warning reads, and I quote, "This film includes language and or cultural stereotypes that are inconsistent with today's standards of inclusion and tolerance and may offend some viewers." Language part, I can understand. Certainly there's strong profane language, which, by the way, I would imagine on AMC might be heavily edited. If any of you haven't seen my Casino, the Bravo version from many years back, I will put the link in my description as an example of how to edit language to such a point that it looks ridiculous, and you may as well just watch the movie uncensored. Why would you want to watch it on Bravo? Casino especially, which is far more profane than Goodfellas, and rightfully so. It's a true story. It's done the way it was supposed to be done. And Goodfellas is a tough picture. So already right there you know that based on the violence and everything else in it, which is not actually discussed here. Interestingly enough, the violence, that is something you would want to see uncensored. So language, all right. Cultural stereotypes. You know, it is for many, 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 many years, it has been said and argued by the Italian Americans that they don't want to see themselves consistently portrayed as being part of the mafia or a mafia element of some kind, or gangsters or whatever. Anything from that criminal culture. They don't want to see it endlessly being depicted in movies and what have you. So, Godfather, The Godfather from 1972 was one of those that was accused of doing just that. Not because it was promoting a stereotype, mind you. That wasn't the case. It was about the very fact that they want to continue to depict Italian Americans in this fashion. Now, Goodfellas is based on a true story. The main protagonist is Henry Hill, who is partly Irish. So, nothing in this movie, Goodfellas, screams stereotype. Stereotype, you have to put it in the proper context. What do you mean by stereotype? Stereotype is something that is stripped of and devoid of humanity. It's a one-dimensional, if you like, caricature. Or maybe two-dimensional, but for the most part, it is just done either for laughs or just depicted in such a way that it's a gross caricature. There's nothing like that in Goodfellas. Not one character in that film ever feels as if it's a stereotype of any kind. They are real people who just happen to be Italian Americans. So this is weird to me that this is the trigger warning. Now, when Goodfellas first came out in 1990, the issue people really had with that film was the violence, which is very strong violence, very stomach-churning, very realistic, no holds barred. It is what it is. That's Scorsese's style for the most part. In fact, it's about not presenting it stylishly. It's presenting it exactly as it would happen, and that's been his MO with Goodfellas, Casino, and to some extent, The Irishman. So this warning really makes no sense at all, and doesn't, again, include the fact that the violence might be an issue. However, considering it's on AMC, I'm going to guess that the violence will not be present in the film at all. They will censor it completely. There's no way they would show it. Or maybe they'll allow some of it. I'm not going to watch it in AMC to find out. Frankly, I'm just, I was inundated with censored versions of movies way back when they used to show the network premiere of a movie or movies, in the afternoon, whatever. I always saw censored versions first. It just happened to work out that way until eventually, with the VHS boom and cable, you get to see the uncensored version of a movie. So, but that brings up the content warnings. So I thought I would mention this. This is from an old article. Now, I think it was a year ago. And this really caught my eye because this is where we're at now, culturally speaking, with regards to younger people. I always say younger people. People my age, if you're really offended by something, you probably will not watch it. You know that if you're going to see a movie called GoodFellas that deals with the Italian mafia, and that was made after, the Hays Code dissipated, and the Motion Picture Rating Association was put into place, which was back in 1969, 1970, you're going to see violence and profanity. There's no question about it. It's just a fact. So it won't be like Edward G. Robinson from back in the day, or the original Scarface with Paul Mooney, etc. So, content warnings. This one was quite interesting. Now, this was about as a teacher. She had 3 students leave the classroom upset and or crying because of the domestic abuse, pedophilia, and rape depicted in Tennessee Williams' classic, A Streetcar Named Desire. As the script analysis teacher, I was rather stunned, she says, by the response. The play had been on the syllabus for this class long before I started working there. And she read it as an undergrad. And this was the first time she encountered such a strong reaction to the text by students. So, after checking on the students who exited to ensure that they were okay, she resumed class with those that remained. We had our quiz, general discussion of the work, and it was time to read aloud and discuss selected passages from the play. By the way, this is a play that I did read, and we read aloud from in high school, when I was in high school in the 1980s. Okay, so, and we saw the film with Marlon Brando afterwards to compare and contrast the differences. So anyway, this is something the students enjoy doing each week and with each new play, and to her surprise and solidarity with their triggered classmates, the remaining students unanimously objected to the reading of any passages aloud. They refused to read Tennessee Williams' work, which was another first for this teacher. And after the class ended, a student came to her and said, "We need to put content warnings on Williams' play," and indeed most of the plays we had read that semester because they had all been triggering in some way or another. So, when the next period class came in, she began asking if everyone was comfortable discussing the play. It was okay if anyone wasn't, and she understood, and it was no problem. She wanted the students to know they could do whatever they felt they needed to do to take care of themselves. So the class was thoughtful at first and finally said yes, they were fine with it. 2 classes, 2 different responses, same play. So then there was another instance about these content warnings, where a couple of years back a student had come to her asking if she could miss the class this week, the week we would be reading A Streetcar Named Desire. She asked if I could give her a different assignment, perhaps something she could write an essay on how to make up for missing class. She said that for personal reasons, reading and discussing the play would be triggering for her. In that instance, I got permission to switch out Streetcar for another play and did. The hell is going on in this country? What is going on? This is just insane to me. I don't understand. I can understand, certain people having, preparing themselves to see something that they know is going to be tough to watch, or tough to read for that matter. There are lots of books like that, lots of movies like that, lots of plays like that. But I don't think you need to have a triggering warning. I mean, do you have that with King Lear, which is a very violent Shakespeare play? A lot of Shakespeare plays are very violent. Do you need a trigger warning then? Do they do that? A content warning. And I just don't understand. I'm rather confused by this cultural thing. It is a cultural thing. I don't understand why you need a safe space. It's interesting to me that recently somebody made the mistake for a elementary school class, no less, which they didn't issue any warning. They just showed this movie. I don't know why. The Winnie the Pooh, the horror film, to an elementary school class. This happened very recently. And a lot of kids were starting to get very upset, and then he had to turn it off, the teacher. I don't know why the teacher decided to show this film. I mean, he had no business doing that whatsoever, this teacher. You would definitely need a content warning for that one, I guess. But why are you showing it to an elementary school class? But in terms of reading a play, I mean, I never thought that even back in the day, you would even suggest to a teacher, can I miss the class because I can't really deal with the play, A Streetcar Named Desire, of all things. Of all things. It's not like you're reading Mein Kampf here. It's A Streetcar Named Desire. It's a play. It's an adult play. And really it should be for adults to read, of some maturity level. And I think that's what you need to be if you see a film like GoodFellas. Martin Scorsese, I think, at the end of the day, he makes films for adults, not for kids. If you cannot handle A Streetcar Named Desire, what can you handle? And if you need a content warning or a trigger warning about GoodFellas that has nothing to do with the violence in it, but the profanity, or even, well, the language to some degree, as I mentioned, but a cultural stereotype that doesn't exist, when in fact the film will be heavily censored anyway, would you be prepared for it if it was showing on some other channel? If it was streaming on Netflix or you watch it on Amazon, it's going to be uncensored. It's going to be exactly what it is. They don't issue a content warning there. Why are you issuing in that for AMC when it's heavily edited anyway? Now, I can understand parental discretion is advised. Even that's being carried too far. If some of you don't know, the show Soap. Okay, let me repeat that. The show Soap, the TV show Soap, Billy Crystal, it has a parental discretion is advised warning. That's, to me, that's like putting it in front of Seinfeld, which I wouldn't be surprised if they do that someday. But it seems, it's interesting to me, a lot of this is very selective, isn't it? It's very selective. And the question is, why? They are going with films that are essentially hot potatoes, that could pose a problem anyway. But when you hear about high school or a university, for this matter, in this case, A Streetcar Named Desire. I mean, what would you need for, if you were going to read David Mamet's play of Glengarry Glen Ross? Or House of Games? Do you need a trigger warning there? Interesting questions. I don't know. I'm not going to watch AMC's version of GoodFellas. I have the Blu-ray. It's just not happening, okay? But anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me yours. Tell me what you think. Do you think that you need a trigger warning in front of a movie or a play, a content warning? Is this necessary, and why? Can't you just discover a film for yourself or a play for yourself? Do you need a safe space from words? Do you need a safe space from images? I just don't know. Back in high school, for example, or it might have been elementary school, I remember we were all gathered at the auditorium to hear the words from a Holocaust survivor. Nobody said parental discretion is advised for all of you before you listen to this speaker. Some of you may storm out of this room crying and in despair, which would be understandable because what she shared was genuinely shocking, of course. Nobody said that in those days, but this was the 1980s. I know I'm old. It's 40 years ago. I just don't know. Anyway, let me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. Have you seen trigger warnings and other things? Disney has them for movies streaming on their channel, and it basically says, most of them says that the usual warning I've noticed is may contain tobacco depictions, like in Pinocchio, of course. Yeah, because we have to be real careful about smoking as well, especially animated characters that are smoking. Let me know your thoughts. Tell me what you think, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. If you are a subscriber, please hit the notification bell for future uploads. And I promise reviews are forthcoming. I do have a review lined up and a couple more coming up, in addition to working on my project and possibly a new trailer related to my project, which I'll discuss some more later. So, that's it. Lend me your thoughts, lend me your ears. Watch GoodFellas Uncensored. You'll be better off, trust me. And I think it's a film that you can learn a lot from, uncensored, without a trigger warning. And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies.